Welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast, where we're over here exploring the unfiltered truths of fatherhood, self-care, mental health, and just navigating the chaos of everyday life. Hope you enjoy the conversation. All right, today on the Men of the House podcast, we have Daniel Packard, and he's joining us today because, just like me, he has a passion for helping people, and we hope this conversation will give you a new way to look at things, maybe have you think of something you never thought of, or, just an alternate perspective on how we deal with anxiety and different issues that we go through every day. So thank you for joining us today, Daniel. How are you?
I'm a pleasure to be here, Richard. And as you said, an alternative perspective. I just thought to myself, your audience doesn't know how alternative what I'm about to share is. I know what I'm about to share, and it's complete. It's a total innovation in how we look at really human struggle and how quickly we can change. So when you said, a new way of looking at things, I was like, oh yeah, it's about to go down. So yeah, I'm excited to share this with your audience because I know that you're passionate about always sharing new perspectives, but also just new perspectives that help your audience live better lives. And I also, just while we're on the topic of how different this is, I want to be really clear in the value of what I'm going to be sharing, because it's a whole innovative way of looking at struggle and happiness. And I'm going to be explaining some theory and some metaphors and some stories, but I want to be really clear, like, what it's about and the value that this has for your audience. Because again, what I'm going to be sharing isn't on people's radar, because what we discovered is an innovation. So I want to be really clear in what we're doing. And what we're doing is what isn't being done. What's being done right now, whether it's anxiety, people pleasing, perfectionism, procrastination, low self-esteem, caring what people think, whatever it is that your audience is struggling with, there's almost 100% chance that most of the help that they're getting is some version of a tip or a tool or an insight or an awareness that'll help them manage what they're struggling with. Manage the anxiety. People say, "Oh, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm a recovering procrastinator. I'm getting better at caring what people think," and that's all great. But what it means is you're still managing it. Now, there's nothing wrong with management. It's definitely better than nothing, and it's what's sold. So it's what people are going to go for, and it's what they're used to. However, people are managing it because that's all that's available. What I'm going to be sharing with your audience is the breakthrough insights that we got into all of these struggles that allow you to be free of it, not only permanently, meaning it's gone, no more management, it's gone, and it's gone quickly. So that's what we do, is we built a system, and it's an online program. It's 6 weeks, and no matter what you're struggling with, anxiety, people pleasing, perfectionism, low self, whatever it is, you go through this process, and at the end, you're free of it in 6 weeks. Now, I know that your audience says, Daniel, that sounds great, but that's too good to be true. I get that. So over the course of the next, little while, I'm going to be explaining to you that it's actually not too good to be true. It's actually really simple. It's that what you've been sold is too ineffective to work. That's why you failed. It's not your fault. It's what you were sold. So I know your audience likes it, but what I'm saying, too good to be true. But I'll be explaining to you why it's not too good to be true. And in fact, it's quite simple to be free of this. So if you're somebody that is just okay with what's available on the market, you like just learning and understanding and managing and always growing and peeling back the layers and going to retreats where you feel better for a while and then it comes back, or whether you read a book and you say, oh, I want to do that, then you fail and think it's your problem. If you're okay with that, there's a $1 trillion industry, which I call the improvement industrial complex, that is happy to support you in managing it. If, however, you're like, Daniel, I don't want to manage this stuff. I just want to be free of it so I can live happier. If you want to be free of this quickly, that's what I'm going to be showing you is possible and how you can do that. How's that sound?
It sounds awesome. I know myself, a lot of people, as a former healthcare manager, I can tell you that the bill of goods that they're selling
is designed to keep making them money. So I think I'm excited to hear it. I'm sure the audience will be excited to hear it. But tell me, I mean, so you have this. What is it? Give us a little bit of your background and how did you end up here? What got you seeking this out and developing this program?
So what we did is, again, we developed a system, and I'll go into more explanation. It's a system that you need if you want to create real change quickly. And trust me, I didn't want to develop this system. It was a lot of work. It was 8 years of my life traveling all over the world, working with addicts in South Africa, working with monks in India, entrepreneurs in Europe. I went all over the world, worked with 3,000 people, spent over $1 million in research and development to figure out a simple, reliable system that gets these results. But dude, I didn't want to. It was a lot of work. The reason I did it is because, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. I needed to come up with something that was more effective and solve things and that worked fast. Why? Because when I was struggling, nothing else was doing that. I was struggling with horrible anxiety because I stayed in an abusive relationship too long. And when I came out of it, I had crippling anxiety and PTSD. But also, I had a horrible fear of rejection, procrastination, people pleasing, perfectionism, caring what people think, you name it. I did it. And like your audience, I go looking for help, So I went looking for help and I spent $100,000 and 10 years, reading the books and going to the retreats and following the coaches and the teachers and doing the apps and the videos and the meditations. And, it helped me manage it. I had insights. I had awareness. It was better. But I was never free of it, Richard. It was still there. I was still insecure. Things would still make me anxious. I was still a people pleaser. I still cared what people thought of me. And I just wasn't living the life I wanted to live. I wasn't being the person I want to be. And at some point, I just had this kind of sad realization. I had a sad realization about something in this industry, which is that what we really want, the result that we really want, is to be free of this stuff quickly. That's the result we want. And I had this sad realization that everything I'd spent my money on, all those teachers I like, those therapists I like, those books I like, all that, it just didn't get the job done. And it was sad because I liked my books, I liked my videos, I liked my retreats, but I was like, yeah, and when it comes to results, it kind of sucked. And I was in a lot of pain. And so because I was trained as an engineer, engineers are very good problem solvers. And when you're an engineer, you're trained to make things work, to get results reliably and consistently, which isn't usually what people get when they go to coaches and therapists and psychologists and trainers and gurus. You don't get consistent, measurable, reliable results, usually. So I said, why don't I approach human happiness, human struggle through the approach of an engineer as a problem solver? And so that's what we did. I started my own research company, Full Liberation Technology, with the mission to see, would it be possible to use not psychology or spirituality, but engineering? Could we reverse engineering? Could we reverse engineer an understanding so that the mission was, and we didn't know if it was possible, could we reverse engineer an understanding of what holds people back such that you had a simple, reliable system such that if you worked the steps, you got the results. And the results are key. The result is not that you're managing it. The result is that it's gone and not coming back. That was the mission. I didn't know if we could pull it off, but that's what the world needed. We needed something more effective, more reliable, and that worked faster, and that was more affordable. That's what I felt the world needed. And we didn't know if it was possible, but we just went at it like engineers and problem solvers. And the short answer is I was one of the first people that got the benefits. I remember waking up one morning feeling calm, oddly calm, a deep calm. And I thought, well, there's no way that's temporary. It's never temporary, but it was. It's been 10 years, and I've just basically been chill as a cucumber for 10 years. Not because I meditate, not because I do affirmations, not because I manage it. It's just, it's gone. But then also, so the anxiety went away, the PTSD went away, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, caring what people think, procrastination, just gone. And when my team saw that, they went, oh my God, we did it. We figured it out. And I said, well, no. I mean, yes, for me, great, but that wasn't our mission. Our mission wasn't to help me. I'm happy to take the benefits. But now we have to be able to replicate this. We have to create a system that's repeatable for others. So that took almost as much more time. First, it was the theory and the understanding, but then to create an online program that had all the tools in one place and all the instructions so that anybody, no matter what you're struggling with, no matter your background, no matter how aware you are, no matter what, if you work the steps, you get the result, which is that at the end of the 6th week, whatever you're struggling with is gone and not coming back. And part of the reason we can make that claim is I'm an engineer. I'm basically a scientist. Everything we do is measured. When you go through the program, we measure you. We do baseline measurements and biomarkers for all the things that what you struggle with. And then as you go through the program, we're tracking your data. You're reporting every day how you're doing. And then at the end, we have real conclusive data that what you are struggling with is gone and not coming back, because that's the real measurement. But the important thing to understand is results matter to us. So if we don't get you results, you don't pay. You don't pay at the beginning when you work with us. You only pay at the very end once you have conclusive evidence that what you're struggling with is gone and not coming back.
I got a question. So when you were talking, I had this thought of, do you think that in the traditional kind of therapy route, that one of the reasons maybe the approach is different from, like, let's say your engineering background approach, is because, like, in a, let's say, talk therapy, they can use the old adage of everybody's different. What works for so-and-so is not gonna work for so-and-so. And therefore, you as an engineer and scientist coming up with a repeatable, measurable system is, it made me think of, yes, everybody's different, but we're all kind of fundamentally the same. So why wouldn't a system kind of such as yours actually work, instead of having to maybe flake out and say, well, everybody's different, so there's no guarantee that, this system would work for me. But, kind of as humans, there is a fundamental similarity. And so I think it's not far-fetched to think that a system would work that could help everybody, because, almost if you look at people who grew up with tough circumstances, tough life situations, they have trauma and things that they have to deal with. But there's people who grow up in great situations and great homes, but they still, at some point, arrive into the world not void of problems. So, regardless of what situation you're coming from, you still end up with a problem. So to me, it doesn't seem, I would say almost, yeah. So why wouldn't a system work? Kind of like yours.
Well, I appreciate your openness, because when I tell people, look, we have a repeatable, verifiable system where we get a 90% success rate in 6 weeks. Now that's incredible. A permanent solution is incredible. 6 weeks is incredible. 90% is incredible. And that's just in 6 weeks. If you do our program long enough, you will get results. We're just talking 90% success rate in 6 weeks. It's incredible. And often people will say, no, you can't get that. And I'll say, why? And they'll say, because everybody's different. And I say, this is part of the problem. Everybody's paradigm is based on what we've been trying for the last 100 years. What's been based in 100 years of modern psychology and personal development. And this industry, the wisdom that is out there is just old regurgitated information that doesn't get great results. So yes, if you base your paradigm of what's being sold and the old regurgitated information, yes, what I'm saying doesn't line up. But what they're leaving out is we innovated something. And what they're leaving out, and what I'm trying to wake people up to, is what's being sold right now is old regurgitated information that doesn't work that well. The father of modern psychology, Freud, was a chain-smoking cocaine addict. I mean, like, think about that. And yet that this entire profession says, like, oh, this is the father of our industry. Look, people follow Warren Buffett not because he's living under a bridge, but because he's a billionaire. People follow people that get results, but when it comes to psychology, results don't matter that much. And this is the industry, and this information has been regurgitated over and over and over again, and that's the business model. You either go to school or you learn some insight that helps you manage, and there's some value in it, and then people pay to regurgitate this old information, and they're fine with that, and that's what's available. But I'm an engineer. The regurgitated information isn't getting the job done. People are in pain. It's taking decades and decades to feel better. Suicide's on the rise. Anxiety's on the rise. Addiction's on the rise. So I just said, no, we're not regurgitating. I'm an engineer. We're good at innovating. And when you innovate something, as you'll understand, one thing can work for everybody because our approach is not spiritual or psychological, but mechanical. If you understand what's going on mechanical, no, everybody isn't different. If you fall off a ladder and you break your bone and you go to the hospital and the doctor says, we're going to put a cast on your bone, you don't say, no, everybody's different. I grew up in a tough neighborhood. I'm too messed up for this cast you speak of. No, I'm not going to. No, that won't work on me. It does work on you because guess what? The issue is mechanical. Your bone, which should be in one piece, is in two pieces. And if you put a cast on it, it mechanically holds it together. And then there's a mechanism that mechanically fuses the bone. And when the bone goes from two pieces to one piece, in 8 weeks, problem solved. So yes, there are things that work for people, everybody, if your understanding is mechanical. If it's spiritual or psychological, yeah, different people, different things. But if it's mechanical, which most of what we struggle with is, and we saw and discovered, then yes, if it's mechanical, one thing works for everybody. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense because especially, having worked in the medical profession, I mean, there's no way if there wasn't some sort of baseline that was similar to everybody, there's no way they'd be able to train doctors and put that many people through school because then every time you had a surgery, if everything looked different or was in a different spot, then it just wouldn't work.
Right.
Everything would be exploratory.
You're absolutely right. When we approach things in the body and you go to Western, physical doctors or traditional Chinese medicine, where they're in the body, we do see that things that are basics apply to everybody. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're going to have problems, so get some sleep. If you're not drinking enough water, you're going to have problems, so drink enough water. If you don't brush and floss, you're going to have problems. They know how to fix your teeth. When it comes to the body, we understand that there are systematic, repeatable, verifiable ways to help people. And a lot of the physical medical industry, while not perfect, there is accountability. If you go in to have brain surgery and you die, God forbid, that's not a good thing. If you get bad results as a doctor, there's an industry that tries to hold you accountable. Now, it's not a perfect industry, but like if you go in and you get your bone, if you have a broken bone, if 9 months later your bone is still broken, people are going to notice that. But anyway, the main innovation is that what we discovered that people don't know is that what people are struggling with is not psychological or spiritual. It's a mechanical issue. And if it's a mechanical issue, it means there can be a simple, effective solution for everybody.
And when I say mechanical, what does mechanical mean? What does mechanical mean as opposed to spiritual or psychological?
So it's a good question. The way we define mechanical is this is connected to this. If you do this, this will for sure happen. If you do this, this is definitely going to happen. It's not a theory. It's not spiritual. Spirituality and psychology are generally abstract concepts, ways of understanding, paradigms. And they're good for giving you a map, but they don't directly say, if you do this, this will definitely happen. That's what we mean by mechanical. So the beauty of mechanical is that it gives you a reliable, repeatable, verifiable, measurable result. Make sense?
Does.
If you're choking and two people walk up to you and one person walks up to you and says, hey, I noticed you choking. It seems like you really have a real scarcity mindset around air. It looks like you're really focusing on the lack of air. And that's making you afraid, and you're focusing on the lack of air instead of the abundance of air that's available. And also, it feels like you tell yourself a story that you have to breathe, and your ego is attached to living, and that's creating more fear. So if you could just let go of all this need to breathe and just let it go and feel your infinite power. Great, interesting, maybe helpful. Or somebody walks up and goes, look, it's really simple. You have an airway. It's mechanically blocked with a bit of Chipotle. I'm going to add mechanical pressure to your stomach, which puts air behind the Chipotle. It'll pop it out, and air will get into your lungs, and you'll live. In that, if you want to solve something quickly and effectively, do you want spiritual, psychological, or mechanical?
That makes perfect sense, kind of the way you put it.
Yeah. So people know that mechanical sounds more repeatable, but they're not used to thinking of their struggles in a mechanical way. So let me explain to you how our struggles are mechanical. And this explanation is going to show you, it's just going to show you that what we're struggling with is maybe a lot simpler than we've been led to believe. And I'm going to lay down the framework to explain that this is simple and mechanical. And I'm not trying to convince anybody, but when we tell people we can solve things, just nobody believes us. They're like, that's impossible. That's too good to be true. Now, it's not too good to be true. That's how we back up our results. The reason that we can charge at the end when you get results is because we're getting results. So this isn't just theory, but to help it make sense of how this is even possible, I want to explain what I mean, that what we struggle with is mechanical, and there's a mechanical solution, okay? Okay, so here's inner mechanics lesson number 1. What we are struggling with, usually we're told in various different ways that what we're struggling with is a problem of the mind. It can be you have a scarcity mindset. Your ego is telling yourself negative thoughts. Your thoughts are attracting the negative thing. It's called mental health. It's got the word mental right in there. So if you look at primarily what's taught and the ways that people are trying to help people, a lot of it is that the mind is the problem and you're going to gain control and power over your mind. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Now, the mind is part of it. The mind can say some nasty, horrible things that can scare you, make you doubt yourself. It's part of it. I used to have a mean, negative, critical mind, and guess what? I felt doubt and insecure, and I have a mind telling me I'm not good enough and I'm a piece of crap. So it seems like the mind is the culprit, except for one problem. They've been trying to solve this stuff for over 100 years, approaching the mind, but they're not solving anything. They're still managing it. So the engineer in me said, if the problem was the mind, wouldn't they have solved it by now? And because we weren't attached to the old paradigms, we said, maybe it's not the mind. Maybe the mind is part of it, but that's not the root cause. And when we looked at it from a fresh perspective, we realized the root cause is not mind. The root cause of what's messing everything up is the body. What do I mean by that? Underneath what we're struggling with, you don't have individual problems. You're led to believe that you have individual problems. What do I mean by that? You struggle with anxiety. You are a procrastinator. You have perfectionism. You are a people pleaser. You have low self-esteem. You doubt yourself. You care what people think. It seems like all these different problems. And what we saw mechanically is you don't have different problems. You have multiple symptoms of one thing.
What's the one
And
thing?
that one thing is fear. You could call it anxiety, but couldn't we just make it more simple and say you have a lot of fear and you call all that fear anxiety?
Because they produce the same, what physiological symptoms are close to?
Yeah. So you could call it anxiety. You could say there's a lot of fear there. You could say I'm a procrastinator, or you could say, well, what if you're afraid to finish something because you're afraid of the outcome, and so you procrastinate as a coping mechanism to avoid the fear?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So you aren't a procrastinator. You have fear, and procrastination is a symptom. It's a coping mechanism. It's a symptom. People who say I'm a perfectionist, you're making it seem like you got infected with perfectionism. Or you could say you have a fear that you're going to make a mistake, and so of course you want things perfect as a coping mechanism to avoid the fear. You could say you're insecure and you care what people think about you, or you could say you have a fear that you're going to be judged and rejected, and so you're insecure. True?
All of them make sense.
All of it makes sense. Now, the reason this is important will become clear. But for now, if you consider that you have all these other problems, those aren't problems. Those are symptoms of one root cause. So part of the reason that people struggle with this stuff is because they go for help, but all they get is symptom management. Tips and tools and strategies. It's great. It's better than nothing. But if the fear is there, you're going to procrastinate. You're going to be a perfectionist. You're going to be insecure, and you're going to be anxious. Make sense?
Oh, it reminds me of, I remember a nurse telling me once, he's like, your throat is sore because your nose is dripping down the back of your throat. You don't treat your throat, treat your nose.
Yeah. Now, in the body, we get this. We understand that. When you have an infection and you have a fever, God, I'm such a fever. I've caught you're like, no. And a fever is a symptom. But when it comes to human happiness and struggle, people have not figured that out, or at least they're not approaching it that way. They're managing the symptom, and you can't manage this. You can't get rid of a symptom. So I'm bringing this up because your audience has been trying to manage this stuff, then they fail, and then they beat themselves up. And I'm telling you, it's not your fault. As long as people sell you things to manage the symptom, it's always going to be there. It's not because you're broken or you're trapped. There's anything wrong with you. It's because what they're selling you is symptom management. It's a Band-Aid. But we didn't want to sell Band-Aids. We wanted to sell upgrades. So the engineer in me said, it's all just fear. Now, your audience already knows that fear is part of it. You don't need me to tell you. Your audience already knows that fear affects them. But again, if you look at the industry, what's the normal approach to fear? Overcome the fear, face the fear, reframe the fear, go from negative to positive. It's still always managing the fear. I spent $3,000-$4,000 on this coach that helped me overcome the fear. So I spent all this money. I would feel the fear. He gave me some tips and tools to overcome the fear. It was great. I overcame the fear. Yay, gold stars. One problem. 5 minutes later, the fear was still there. So there's so much stuff out there to help you manage the fear. Understand the fear. Don't let the fear win. Push through the fear. Understand. And the engineer in me said, well, is anybody just trying to solve the fear? Has anybody tried to figure out where all this fear is coming from and then create a simple system to alleviate the fear? Nobody was doing it. But don't you think that would be smarter?
It does. It sounds a lot when the multiple times that you've mentioned managing versus solving. But even in the vernacular of even drug companies and commercials, they even say managing diabetes. Nobody ever says fix it, solve it, cure it. Even on TV, we're hearing manage. And so it's almost like in a way you could say like an industry standard. But like I said too, with healthcare, they treat all these symptoms, and then of course with what they treat it with requires you to come back every 3 months to be tested and make sure that these treatments are impacting your kidneys, your liver, and everything else. But it's a revolving door. It's like getting on the subway every day or every 3 months, whatever it is that they require of you. But it is, I mean, it's just like going around in circles, and, nobody, but of course, if it's a system that breaks all the time or keeps people coming back would normally be a bad system you know, unless you're in the business of repairing those systems, like a copy machine that never breaks. It'd be horrible for Epson or whoever, but it's great for the people who get to come out and fix it all the time.
Well, people have asked me, especially clients, when they go through this program, they'll think this was really common sense sitting right under everybody's nose. Why did it take an engineer to figure this out? And I went, well, first of all, I don't know. I don't know what's in the hearts of all these other therapists, psychologists, coaches. But I've asked a lot of them, and I've also spoken to a lot of people. I don't think they're trying to not solve it, but they definitely are incentivized to not solve it. And I think they're complacent regurgitating. I think they're okay with it. And that's okay with some people. I know a friend who's a therapist. People walk in, they talk about their problems, they feel a bit better, and she's like, oh, I helped someone today. And her measurement of help is helped a little. And she is okay with that. I am not. When people are going through our program and I don't see the change, it affects me. I'm like, we have to help these people more. I am not complacent. To me, the only measurement of success is that you're free of it. And if we can't do that, that matters to us. That's why we don't charge you unless we help you, because we're not complacent. Now, the question your audience wants to know is, well, how do we get rid of the fear? You don't need me to tell you that you're afraid or that fear is a problem. So here is how you solve fear. You solve fear by understanding where the fear is coming from in a way that makes this solvable. There's a lot of explanations for fear, but they don't make them solvable. You'll hear people say, oh, it's my childhood. I had a critical parent, so now I doubt myself. This bad thing happened. I'm not saying it doesn't affect you, but if that's the explanation of where your fear and doubt comes from, that's not solvable unless you have a DeLorean and you can go back in time. So this is an understanding of where the fear is coming from that makes this simple and solvable. You want me to tell you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So as I said, most people say where the fear is coming from, whether it's the anxiety, the procrastination, the low self-esteem, the doubt, the sabotage, they're telling you it's a problem of the mind. Except all the techniques that are mind-focused never solve things quickly. So we said, well, maybe the fear is coming from somewhere else. And once we just were open to finding out where it's actually coming from, the answer is really obvious, okay? When we feel fear, do people say, I think fear or I feel fear?
They feel it.
Yeah. Do people say, I think anxious or I feel anxious?
I feel anxious.
Yeah. And where do you feel it? Your throat, your chest, your heart, your stomach?
Solar plexus.
We're told all these problems are a problem of the mind, but yet, listen to those words: throat, chest, heart, stomach. Does that sound like the mind to you or the body?
The body.
Yeah. It sounds like the body because it is the body. Fear originates in the body. That is the root cause of the body. Now, people will say, well, no, it's connected. And the mind, scares the body. No. That's how it seems, because the mind can say scary things and you can feel fear. So you might think it's the mind, especially if someone tells you it's the mind. And since they're happening simultaneously, unless you study this like we do and you test things, it looks like the mind could be the root cause, but it's not. And if you look closely, you can see that the mind is not the root cause. Have you ever noticed that when you're calmer and you feel calmer, usually your mind tends to notice good things? And when you feel more afraid and anxious, your mind tends to fixate on more negative things?
Oh, yeah.
So what's the root cause? Where is the fear starting? The body or the mind?
The body.
Yeah, it starts in the body and it spreads to the mind because that's how we are mechanically wired. Your body senses what the body needs: fear, hunger, thirst, sleep. Then your mind is a tool to get the body what it needs. That's mechanics. You're not sitting around going, I'm thinking of a cheeseburger. I'm thinking of bacon. I'm thinking of guacamole toast. And then your stomach goes, ooh, mind, awesome. I think I'll feel hunger. No, you feel hunger in the body first, then the mind senses the hunger, and then your mind starts thinking of ways to eat food.
So the mind's really just the register or the meter for whatever you're being told physiologically.
It's a meter, but it's also secondary. It's not the cause. It comes second. You feel in the body first, then it spreads to the mind. But then what happens is when you feel fear, your mind thinks there's a threat. And so it starts looking for problems and starts telling you and insulting you and incriminating you because it's trying to make sense of why you're afraid. Then, of course, those thoughts are kind of scary, so it makes it worse. But the mind is not the root cause. The root cause is the body. This is not theory. This is not my cute little idea. When we started developing tools that just focused on the body, not only did my fear and anxiety go down and stay down, but guess what happened? My mind went quiet. My mind is just quiet. I don't meditate. I don't have to do mindset reshift. I don't have to do affirmations. My mind is just quiet. Not because I'm enlightened, but because my body is just calm. And when your body is calm, there's no problem. So your mind goes quiet. Makes sense?
It does. I'm digesting this all because it's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah. It's both simple and seems complete common sense, but yet it's not taught. And this is why this is important. Your audience has been told and read books and videos and retreats telling this is the mind problem. And the experts sent you literally to the wrong place, the wrong location. That's why this stuff is sticking around. Not because you're broken or you're failing or it's your fault, because the experts, while well-intentioned, had an incomplete model of understanding and sent you to the wrong location. But can you see that if we actually go to the right location, the root cause, the body, can you see the likelihood of us solving this is going to go up?
Absolutely. Man.
Okay. So inner mechanics lesson number 1. While the mind is part of it, it is not the root cause. Fear starts in the body, then spreads to the mind, which means if you just focus on the body, you can get the body to stop being afraid. And when the body stops being afraid, not only does the anxiety, the procrastination, the perfectionism, all the symptoms of the fear go away, but the mind also goes quiet. Sound good?
How do you get the body to stop being afraid?
That's the excellent question. That's what we asked. When we realized it was in the body, then the engineer in me said, okay, so we need to understand, why is the body afraid in a way that makes this solvable? But once we approached it that way, the answer revealed itself very quickly, because it's actually quite obvious, and it's going to kick yourself that the experts didn't tell you this. So the beauty of the body is there's lots of systems. You've got the skeletal system, the dental system, the eye system, the cardiac system, the epidural. It's all these systems, and systems are mechanical. So I just said, well, if we figure out the system that's making everybody so afraid, then we just need to understand why that system's malfunctioning and repair the system. Make sense?
Nervous
so take
system?
out the word fear and just swap in the word nervous. What system in the body is most likely to be making everybody extra nervous? The capillary system, the skeletal system, or the freaking nervous system?
Yep.
What do you think?
It's in the root. It's in the root of the word.
It's right in the name. Are you kidding me? Experts, how did you miss this? You've got millions, if not billions of people showing symptoms of fear. There's a system in the body called the nervous system. And instead of looking there, you went to the mind, not for a day or a week, but 100 years. And after all these bad results, you're still calling it mental health. Meanwhile, there's a system in the body called the nervous system, and you're not going there? Come on. They're asleep at the wheel. They're not paying attention. They're just regurgitating old information, but we didn't want to regurgitate. We wanted to innovate, and we wanted to look at things with fresh eyes and solve this. And if you want to solve it, you realize there's a system in the body called the nervous system. And if you got fearful people, maybe that's the best place to look. Make sense?
Oh yeah. I'm just trying to think of how I think of I'm thinking back to kind of the Western medicine, working in a clinic and going, how do they treat nerve problems and why does it work? But yeah, I'm definitely interested in hearing more.
Now, intuitively, practically, people already know that fear is coming from the body on some level, because that's why people do breathing exercises. You calm the body and the mind quiets. Now that's management. It doesn't last, but at least we people get, oh yeah, that's why people exercise, to deal with anxiety. You go, you exercise, you get into a good mood, the anxiety goes down, the mind quiets, people feel good. It's temporary, but at least they understand that this has to do with my body. And there are other people out there, Bessel van der Kolk, Gabor Mate. There are people that are pointing to the body. I'm not the only one. Now, they haven't figured out how to solve it, but they're pointing to the body. I'm not the only one. We're the only ones that figured out how to solve it quickly, but we're not the only ones saying this originates in the body. So here is why we're fearful in the body. Here is why the nervous system is malfunctioning. And again, this is dead simple. This is super simple and mechanical. There's really three main reasons that a system in the body will malfunction. Catastrophic failure, meaning you fall off a ladder and you break your leg. You can hurt a system in the body. Something genetic, you were born where the system wasn't fully developed for them, and you'll have some symptoms. And there's a third reason that a system in the body will malfunction, and that's if you don't take care of it. Most systems in the body have basic care. And if you do the basic care, the system takes care of itself. Your teeth, your digestive system, your body. A lot of your body, if you just take care of it, it'll take care of you. It's incredible. But if we don't take care of the body, if we don't brush and floss, if we don't get enough sleep, if you don't drink enough water, if you don't eat a balanced diet, that lack of care will accumulate and that system will start to malfunction. Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So we were trying to make things simple and mechanical, and we said, well, we've all got a nervous system. Were we ever taught to take care of the nervous system? Or were we ever taught how it functions? And the answer is no. So we said we got a system in the body called the nervous system. Everyone's feeling really nervous. Why don't we figure out this nervous system thing? And what if we realize maybe the nervous system needs care? And what we discovered is there's 28 types of care that the nervous system needs. I'm not going to go into them now, but we need to take care of our nervous system. We need to care for it. And if we don't care for our nervous system, what's going to happen is the nervous system is going to feel extra nervous, aka unsafe, aka fearful. Discovered is a direct mechanical link and the nervous system feeling safe, and low care where the nervous system feels unsafe. You following?
I am.
So here, I'll give you an example. Okay. And this will show you we're going to do a little role play that'll just show you that there's a direct link between care and the nervous system feeling fearful or calm. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So in this role play, I'll be talking to you, Richard, but I'm also talking to your audience. So your audience, hello, audience member. Hello. All right. So in this role play, I'm talking to you and we're going to be friends. Okay. And what I'm here to show you is that there's a mechanical link between how I treat you and how much fear you have around me. Okay. So let's say for a while, I'm a really good friend to you. I'm considerate. I'm thoughtful. I make you a priority. When you need me, I'm there for you. I know what you need and I make that a priority. And I know what matters to you, and what matters to you matters to me. If I treat you well, consistently, over time, will you feel fearful around me or unsafe? Sorry, will you feel fearful or calm around me?
Calm.
And the reason that you feel calm around me is because when I treat you well, you mechanically trust me. And when you trust me, you feel safe and calm. Make sense?
Yep.
So there's a mechanical link between care, trust, and safety. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the thing about mechanics is if you know how to move something in one direction, you can move it in another direction. So now let's say for some reason which you don't understand, I start being a crappy friend to you. I'm mean to you. I'm critical to you. When you need me, I'm not there for you. I know what matters to you, and it doesn't matter to me. In fact, I know what scares you, and I do it anyway. I don't appreciate you. I criticize you, and I put everybody else way ahead of you, and you might get some scraps and crumbs. And when you really, really need me, I'm not there for you. In fact, I might even criticize you. If I treat you that way for a while, do you feel safe and calm or unsafe and fearful?
Unsafe and fearful.
Right. Because you don't trust me. So can you see there's a mechanical link, at least in this relationship, between care, trust, and fear?
Yep.
Okay. So in this role play, we're in a friend relationship. But is it fair to say that we're in a relationship with ourselves?
Yeah.
And is it fair to say that we're not always a loving, caring friend to ourselves?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You didn't have to pause. You knew right away. And your audience knows that right away. People know we're not great to ourselves. The number one is, oh, I beat the crap out of myself. Remember, I'm really hard on myself. People know that. So people know that we're not caring for ourselves. And we know that we're afraid. But what nobody figured out is that that fear feeling is coming from the poor treatment. That's what we discovered. The fear in your body is because every day, about 10 to 30 times a day, people are not taking care of themselves, their feelings and emotions. And then their nervous system doesn't feel safe and then cranks out all this fear. That's where a majority of the fear is coming from, is not the outside world. It's not your past or your trauma. A majority of the fear is how you are treating yourself every day, and you've broken trust with yourself, and you feel unsafe within your own body. And when you feel unsafe within your own body, you feel fear. And then that fear can manifest as anxiety, perfectionism, people-pleasing, procrastination, etc. Does what I say make sense?
It does. I'm sitting here rolling through every feeling I've ever had that was similar to that, and trying to link it all together and how it makes sense, and like to realize the damage I think we've done to ourselves in a way.
Yeah. Now, when I say it, people go, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I've treated myself poorly. I've been a bad friend to myself. If somebody treated me this way, yeah, I'd be fearful and anxious around them. I wouldn't feel good. We completely get when other people treat us poorly, we feel fear. If somebody else treated us poorly and was mean and reactive and critical, can you see that you'd be less likely to be confident around them?
Mm-hmm.
Low confidence. Can you see that you'd be kind of walking on eggshells and afraid to make a mistake?
Mm-hmm.
Perfectionism. All the symptoms that we experience, we would feel if we were on the other end of somebody else treating us poorly. Just nobody figured out we're on the other end of ourselves. We're treating ourselves poorly, and these symptoms are showing up. Now, here, I'll give you another example. Again, what I'm trying to show you is that the fear that we feel is not coming from the outside or our past. A majority of the fear is how we treat ourselves every day. That's ground zero for where the fear is coming from. And nobody's seeing this, but I'll show you another example. So some people know about being hard on ourselves, right? A lot of people know that's one form of way that we're not loving. But here's another one. Do you do this, or have you ever, or do you know somebody that deflects compliments?
Yeah.
Which one?
I hate compliments.
All right.
I say it's
There you
just
go.
my job. I was just doing
It's
my
just my job. Now, your audience, a lot of them either says, oh, I'm horrible with compliments, or I used to be, and I'm getting better at it. So people know that they're bad with compliments,
Mm-hmm.
and they know they're afraid. What they didn't figure out, but the data showed, is those acts are creating the fear. Now, when I say that, what do you think?
I have a couple of thoughts. I mean, I have thoughts of going, it kind of makes sense because normally I think deflecting compliments is a way, when I examine it through like that view, is it's a way of fearing that you weren't good enough. Like on a self-evaluation that I always had to do, I would always say, if I thought I was let's say 1 to 5, 3 is average. If I thought I was average, I would take one step below, because I was fearful of not being good enough or not being up to standard. But typically when the review would happen, I would actually get where I initially started, if not even higher. But it was that fear of being judged, the fear of maybe being told I wasn't good enough. That's what would cause me to go lower on a self-review, or even deflect a compliment and say, well, I was just doing my job, or anything like that, as opposed to just taking the compliment.
I think there's some truth to what you're saying, but just to make it simple, again, what I'm trying to explain is, if you don't take care of yourself, these 28 ways, your nervous system, it's a system in the body, will feel it, and it will break trust, and your nervous system will feel unsafe and crank out fear. And there's an accumulation effect over time. But this is theory, so I want you to just feel it. What I'm saying is, the fear that you feel is coming from these little acts of non-care each day. But here, I'll just give you another example, all right? We'll do the role play. Let's say we're friends, okay? And let's say somebody pays you a compliment, and then I jump in and I say, no, you get that love and appreciation away, get it away from them. They do not deserve to be seen, loved, or appreciated. What they get, what I'm going to give them, is criticism when they make a mistake. If I deflect that compliment, how are you going to feel?
Not great.
Specifically, can you see you might feel a little bit unsafe and fearful? So it's pretty obvious to see how it feels to be on the other end. But can you see that if you're doing that to yourself 10 to 30 times a day, that over time that'll accumulate to leave your nervous system feeling unsafe and creating fear?
Yeah. And see, when I was saying all that too earlier, I was sitting there as you're speaking all this, I try to go back to different points and times in my life when I felt like, let's say, the mind was calm, or I had less anxiety or less fear, or just felt a more overall sense of well-being. And I try to think back and correlate it to, what was I doing at that point in my life? How was I self-caring? How was I self-talking to myself? To see if I can pinpoint and correlate any of those data points, to see how they correspond to my happiness and well-being.
Well, it's a good way to go. Now, some people that are paying attention, they know intuitively what I'm saying, that when you treat yourself better, usually you feel better.
Right.
And some people go, yeah, when I meditate, when I'm kinder to myself, when I connect to my passion, I feel better. So that's an indication that there is a correlation between care and how we feel. But it's still management. It hasn't fully healed the relationship into the root cause. That's the big breakthrough that we got, is that we built a system. So I had a client who came to me. When I showed them, I said, you're not a perfectionist. You have this fear that's coming from your nervous system because you treat yourself poorly. She said, I do treat myself poorly. And she said, that's true. When I take a day off, I do feel calmer. And I said, yeah, but that's managing it. That's not the same as completely eliminating the fear. which is what we did. That's the big breakthrough. But here, I'll prove it to you. Again, the beauty of mechanics is if you can make somebody feel afraid with poor treatment, you can calm down the nervous system with good treatment. So on the count of 3, turn to me and say, hey, Daniel, you're treating me poorly and I feel fearful around you. Say that to me on the count of 3. Say, Daniel, the way you're treating me leaves me feeling afraid. Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Daniel, the way you're treating me leaves me feeling afraid.
Oh my God, thank you for telling me. I am so sorry. That makes total sense. The way you're acting, all this fear and all these symptoms of fear, I judged you and I told you there's something wrong with you and I told you to read a book. Of course you're afraid. Look at how I'm treating you. You don't trust me. You don't feel safe around me. And this fear and these symptoms of fear, there's nothing wrong with you. It's me not being good to you. And I'm glad you told me, because this gives me an opportunity to treat you better and rebuild that trust with you so you feel safe around me. And I'm sorry I didn't get this till now. I was telling you had all these problems and you don't. And I'm really sorry. And it's going to take time for me to rebuild trust with you. But right now, I just want to tell you I'm sorry and I'm glad you told me. And this isn't your fault. I just treated you really well right there. If I treat you that way, does your nervous system feel unsafe and fearful or safe and calm?
Safe and calm.
Right. So we figured out the mechanics of what people are doing every day, that it's accumulating over time, that leaves your nervous system feeling unsafe and fearful. That's where the fear is coming from. And then the anxiety, perfectionism, all that is a symptom of the fear. Now, the downside is nobody sees this. And every day, 10 to 30 times a day, totally unknowingly, you are being an unloving friend to yourself. And that lack of care is accumulating over time, breaking trust within yourself, leaving your nervous system feeling unsafe and creating this fear. And then a coping mechanism for the fear is all these things you're doing. And the anxiety you're feeling is a symptom of all that fear. That's the downside. And if you don't learn to take care of your nervous system, if you don't know how to take care of it daily, you will continue to do the things that are messing up your nervous system, and you'll continue to have these symptoms. That's why nobody can get rid of this stuff, because what's causing it, you're doing it to yourself every day. Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the bad news. What's causing most of the fear, the root cause, is you to you, and you don't know you're doing it. It's little acts of non-care accumulating over time, and you don't even know you're doing it. That's the bad news. But if we want a systematic, simple way to turn this around quickly that seems doable and possible, why is it good news to figure out that the root cause, which is the fear, is just a symptom of little daily acts of unhealth? Why is that good news?
Hey, this is Ethan from the Nonchalant Perfectionist Podcast. Give my podcast a listen, as well as so many others at the Podcast Connection Network. Over here, man, we're all about mental health and holistic wellness. The link will be in the description. Enjoy the show.
We can solve that. Or, well,
Yes.
we can be aware and start taking action in a more positive direction.
Yes. And the key word is taking action. If the actions that got us into trouble are little actions of unhealth, we can do actions to shift to little actions of health. It's all doable. It's all simple. We know this. If you have an unhealthy diet, it accumulates and you gain weight. And when people gain weight, they don't go, oh my God, I need to shift my mindset. I need to have a thin mindset. I need to drop the... No. Little acts of unhealth accumulated to create the fat.
Yeah.
But guess what? To solve it, you don't need enlightenment. You don't need a third chakra. You just need to switch from little acts of unhealth to little acts of health. It's all simple. It's all doable, and it's in the body. We know it's possible. If you don't drink enough water, you run into problems. So you simply drink enough water and the body repairs itself. That's why we're able to do this. This isn't too good to be true. We do it in our bodies all the time. Nobody who gains weight says, oh my God, this is so confusing. What's wrong with me? This is my childhood. I need to spend years. No, I ate more calories than I burned. Now I got to just burn more calories than I eat. Simple, doable. And that's what we did. Now, that's the theory. And again, this isn't just theory. This is why I wake up every morning and my nervous system is calm. I wake up every morning and I just feel safe. It's my default, not because I'm enlightened, not because I shift my mindset, not because I meditate, because I take care of my nervous system and I feel safe. It's my default. Can you see that not just anxiety, but procrastination, perfectionism, people pleasing, caring what people think? Can you see that if you just woke up feeling safe from the inside out, can you see that those symptoms might disappear and not come back?
Oh yeah. I'm sitting here thinking all these things in my head going, how does one do this? But then again, like I said, I try to go back and think about all the different times in my life where I felt things were either on track or I felt a sense of calmness. And I try to correlate to what was I doing for self-care,
Good.
both mentally and physically.
Yeah. So the good news is that this fear that your audience is experiencing, it's manifesting in different ways. You can call it anxiety, people pleasing, self-doubt, shyness, lack of confidence, whatever you call it, there's fear. But what we discover is fear isn't mysterious. It's a mechanical symptom of not taking care of yourself and your nervous system every day. And the reason that's good news is because if a system in your body is malfunctioning from lack of care, you can repair it with good care. We know that's possible. Now, that's the theory. I live the benefits every day. Every day I see the results. Every day I just checked because I can see the data on our clients. I had a gentleman, he was a procrastinator. He procrastinated, I think, about 5 hours a day. And he was a perfectionist because they're linked. And he had anxiety. And I showed him, I said, what if you don't have 3 problems? What if there's fear? And what if it's your nervous system? And he said, that makes a lot of sense. He says, also, I have spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the coaches and the therapies and the mindset shifting and the goals. He said, it just managed it. He said, it makes sense I could only manage it because the root cause, the fear in my nervous, I never addressed. And when he found out that he only pays at the end, he's like, well, I'm skeptical, but like, I got to try it. It should work. And I said, yeah. So we have data because I looked at it online. He went from procrastinating 6 hours a day at the start of the program. He's now 4 weeks in. He now procrastinates 20 minutes a day.
Wow.
Okay. We have the data. The amount of avoiding and stalling based in fear went from about 4 hours a day down to 15 minutes. His anxiety went from about 8 out of 10 throughout the day. It's now down to about 4.5 out of 10. And his perfectionism is pretty much gone. But he didn't do 3 programs. He did 1 program that repaired his nervous system so he feels safe and the fear is gone. And so multiple symptoms improve. That's the value of an effective system that's engineered to address the root cause. That's his results in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. That's how I get so excited. We're all here to create change and impact in the world. That is real change. A simple system to repair the nervous system so you feel safe. How much better would your life be to you, Richard, and your audience, if you woke up every morning and just felt safe? How would your life be better and different?
Man. It would be just to not have that underlying kind of concern or worry or what some people might call like a baseline of anxiety. It would be nice. I could tell you. I've had it before, but I've never, that was through management, kind of like you said, like maybe I've gone through periods of my life where I managed well and had all the tools in full effect. But never fully gone.
No. And it won't ever be fully gone until you know how to daily take care of your nervous system. It's going to come back. So someone can say, well, I had healthy teeth for a while, but then I got cavities later. Yeah, you got cavities later because you stopped brushing and flossing.
Yeah.
That's why this model is so effective. People have experienced states where they're confident and open-hearted and they don't procrastinate. But because the root cause was never addressed, and in some ways they're reinforcing the root cause daily, it's temporary. It's going to come back. The value of our understanding is you are free of, I'm free of it, man. No anxiety. I don't give a flying fudge what you think. I truly, on a cellular level, do not care. There's no fear in my system. I can't procrastinate. I'm working and in passion and purpose all the time. I'm open-hearted. I'm authentic. I'm free. And when you're free of this stuff, instead of managing it, you're that person you want to be. And all that energy that goes into management just goes into being the best version of you. Now, as great as all this sounds, this is not why we get the results that we get. Because what I've explained to you and your audience is just a theory. Now, the theory is real, but theory doesn't solve anything.
Right. So what's the action?
What solves this? What gets the results is the system we built. It's the system that gets the results. That's how we get a 90% success rate. That's why we can afford to charge you at the end when it works, because we built a system and tested and refined and calibrated a system and made sure that if you work the steps, you get the results. And this is also why people don't change faster, because they don't get systems. Your average person, when they go looking for help, usually gets an individual tip or a tool or an insight from a coach. They get an individual insight or an individual tip or tool. And that's great for management, but you're not going to create real deep change with one tool. If you hired a contractor to completely overhaul your house and your contractor showed up and they're like, I've got a screwdriver, I got one tool, I'm here for the job, I got one tool. Would you be slightly suspicious that they couldn't get the job done?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you went and took your car to a mechanic and they're like, I've got a wrench, just a wrench, I got one wrench, would you be suspicious that they couldn't rebuild your engine?
Absolutely. See, my mind automatically went to, when you talk about systems, was, almost like AA, people who do 12 steps. They have to do meetings. There's a bunch of things they do, but there's kind of a framework that they work through that helps them have a better chance of success. But
there's a framework to manage.
Correct.
Yeah, there are frameworks out there. There are systems for management for people that deal with procrastination. There's like goal setting. You could argue that's a system. To manage, absolutely. There are systems out there to manage. But to solve, a system. So this is how we took the theory and turned it into a 90% success rate where you're free of it. Because instead of one tool, to get the job done quickly and effectively, you always need multiple tools that are designed to work together to get one job done. A mechanic has all the tools necessary for a car. A contractor has specialized tools to repair a house. A gardener has gardening tools. A chef has cooking tools. It's a specialized toolkit, all the tools in one place to get the job done. Make sense?
Yep.
But your audience doesn't do that. Your audience is sold this tool, then this tool, then that tool, then this, and they're running around, then they fail, then they beat themselves up thinking there's something wrong with you. No, it's not your fault. You were given individual tools when you needed a complete comprehensive toolkit to get the job done. That's why you failed. But can you see that if you have an optimized toolkit to address the root cause, can you see that you're going to have a much higher success rate than running around and go try this tool, then this tool, then that tool?
It makes so much sense the way it's explained. Like you said in the beginning, it sounds so simple. It
is simple. And all the time, clients, this happened 2 weeks ago. This gentleman came to me. He struggled with anxiety and people pleasing his whole life. And he had done the therapy. He's done meditation. He's done everything. Managed it, never gone. So a few weeks into our program, I get a message from him. His name was Donald. He was from Hawaii. who's an entrepreneur. And he said, I'm feeling really conflicted. I said, what do you mean? He said, I am so grateful that you figured this out. This is so simple. I already feel better. I have so much hope. I can already see the change happening. He said, but I'm also pissed off that I spent all those money to all those quote unquote experts who missed this. This is so obvious. How did they miss it? I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But they did. The simple thing sitting right under everybody's nose. And there's historical precedence for this. In the 1850s, there was a nurse called Florence Nightingale. She was a British nurse during the Crimean War. And she noticed that more soldiers were dying in recovery than on the battlefield. So she goes to the experts, the generals and the doctors, and she says, hey, like, this is a problem. Like, what's going on? And the experts basically said, there's nothing you can do. Like, don't worry about it. It's just part of war. But she wasn't an expert. She wasn't a doctor. She was just a nurse paying attention who was tired of these crappy results and cared enough to pay attention. And what did she discover? Something very simple. Hygiene. Change the bandages, open the windows, move the patients away from the toilets. And when she discovered something very simple that the experts missed, the death rate dropped by 99%.
Oh, wow.
So when the experts are so busy being experts, there's historical precedence that shows they missed the simple thing sitting right under everybody's nose that'll bring great results. And we're no different. We just cared enough, and she cared enough to go looking for a solution. When we went looking for a solution, we found it. It was sitting literally under everybody's nose. Now, the second part that makes the system effective is not just all the tools in one place. Because let's say you have a friend who tastes a chocolate chip cookie, and they want to make a chocolate chip cookie. And you give them everything they need. You give them all the tools, the bowl, the spoon, the whisks, the oven, all the ingredients, the flour, the water, the eggs, everything. You give them everything they need. But they don't know how to bake. Even if they have everything they need, are they going to be able to make a chocolate chip cookie?
No.
Why?
Because they don't have the instructions, the steps. And especially with baking, it's got to be a little more precise than, because I come from a cooking background, and I think there's always all these chefs that almost fail pastry because chefs are cooked to taste, which kind of reminds me of individual plans of like a therapist, where baking is more precise and exact. Follow the recipe and you get the product. And that's where my mind kind of automatically went when you were talking about this.
And your mind went there because that's the answer. You need the instructions. How much of what, in what order, for how long? Without the instructions, having everything you need, you can't get what you want. What do I do? What do I do with the flour? Do I put it on my head? Do I stick dry flour in the oven? What do I do with the egg? Do I bite the, like, if without the instructions, even with the tools, you can't get what you want. But when I went looking to solve my anxiety and people pleasing and perfectionism, I get handed a tool or a concept, and the guru, the teacher, the therapist, the trainer would just be like, good luck. No instructions, not what to do, in what order, for how long to get this result. So of course people are failing. They have an incomplete toolkit and no instructions. There's instructions for baking. There's instructions for how to make a cookie. There's instructions for Legos. There's instructions for how to make an IKEA bookcase, but nobody gets instructions on how to be happy. And that's why your audience has failed. So people say, Daniel, I'm afraid I'm going to try your program and fail. I'm like, yeah, I know, because everything else you've tried has failed you, not because you're going to fail. The reason our program works is we give you all the tools, but then we spend 8 years laying out, what do you do on what day, in what order, for how long? And if you follow the steps, you get the results, because we give you the complete toolkit and the instructions. No guessing, no wondering. You know exactly what to do on what day, for how long, and when. Can you see that if you have all the tools that you need in one place and precise instructions of what to do on what day, in what order, for how long, can you see that a permanent solution may not be so good to be true?
Yeah, the way you've explained it makes so much sense. How many skeptics do you get that, because what I initially thought of when you were saying, I don't think it'll work, like people who are kind of skeptical about something. Well, if you're skeptical, if you don't think you can, well, then you probably can't. So kind of what my question is how many people who are skeptics and think they can't or it won't work go in, and even against all odds, against their own belief system, it works?
Well, first of all, the thing with skepticism, everybody is skeptical of what we do because it's an innovation. Anytime you innovate and you're getting better results than what people are used to, they all think it's too good to be true. When Florence Nightingale first had the data and she went to the generals, she said, look, we're saving lives. And the generals dismissed it. They were like, get that out of here. It's too simple. No way. When things get better results and things are simple and it's an innovation, people reject it. But also, your experience tells you that everything you've bought up until this point just manages things. Then I come along, I don't have any credentials, and I'm saying not only can we solve this, but in 6 weeks, your experience will tell you don't fully trust what I'm doing. So everybody we help is skeptical. That's why we have a no change, no charge guarantee, because we say, be skeptical. So try it. If it doesn't work, you don't pay a penny. When it does work, you get your life back. Be skeptical, but there's no risk to try it. And since if it works, when it works, you get to be the person you want to be and live the life you want to live. Try it. But also the beauty of mechanics is it doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. This is mechanical. Psychological, yeah, you got to be on board. But if you have a broken bone and you go to the doctor and they say, look, we're going to put a cast on it and hold the bone and then the bone will heal. And you go, I don't believe in your fancy cast. Your newfangled, there's no way you can pull this off. Your body doesn't care. The mechanism just works or it doesn't work. If you want to lose weight and you don't understand how weight loss works and you're like, I don't believe in your diet, it doesn't matter. If you burn more calories than you eat, you'll lose weight because there's a mechanism that burns the fat. So you don't need to believe in this. I get this all the time. I've had clients. This happened 3 months ago. There was this woman, Wendy, from California, and she had anxiety, people pleasing, and procrastination. And she just said, look, Daniel, I don't think you can do this. She said, but I'm in so much pain. It's no risk to try it. It can't hurt to try it. At the very least, I'll learn something, but I'll give it a shot. I've tried everything else. Why not? I went, okay. Horrible attitude. Convinced it wouldn't work. But if it's mechanical, it doesn't matter. If you work the steps, you get the results. If you don't believe in chocolate chip cookies, but you follow the recipe, you end up with a chocolate chip cookie. It's a whole new way of looking at things.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Be skeptical. Now, first of all, when people do our program, by about day 5, they're enrolled. They're skeptical because of what they've tried in the past. But once they see the new way that we're doing things, they're like, oh my God, this is incredible. How'd you figure this out? It's so simple. And they feel better. So nothing sways skepticism like results. Right. But here's the thing. If the people we work with are skeptical, but they're motivated. Because skepticism is fear. And people who are fearful will let the fear win. The people we work with are motivated. So if you're listening to this, this is who we help. If you have anxiety or struggle with anxiety, and you've tried everything, and at best you're able to manage it, but you would love to feel safe so the anxiety goes away and doesn't come back, We help people do that every day, and we can help you with that. If you're a procrastinator, and if you work really hard, you can manage the procrastination and white knuckle it and create all sorts of systems and reminders and goal settings and push through the procrastination. But the idea of just feeling safe and not having the fear of the outcome, so you naturally don't procrastinate and you're free of it, we help people do that every day, and we can help you with that. If you're a people pleaser and you're managing the people pleasing and you're a recovering people pleaser, but you'd like to just feel safe, so there was no fear if you made a mistake, so that you could be the natural, authentic you. If that sounds good to you, we help people with that every day. We can help you with that. If you have low self-esteem, self-doubt, if you care what people think of you and you see, yeah, I'm afraid. And instead of always managing and motivating yourself and trying to believe in yourself, you would just like to wake up every morning feeling safe, not having fear, so that you were naturally confident, naturally authentic, naturally spontaneous. And that's your default. If that sounds good to you, to be free of all this stuff quickly and with no risk to try it, we help people with that every single day, and we can help you with that.
Man, just even today, I think, was the first day that I've ever had more the thought of something that really sticks in my head is how much the world has been looked at in terms of let's manage everything versus let's solve this. Like men, I think typically, sometimes I always say, like, we can be bad. Like, I can be a bad listener to my wife when she tells me a problem because I want to fix it. We're fixers. But for whatever reason, I worked in an emergency room, and of course that's about fixing. But once I left the emergency room and worked in primary care and all that, it was kind of like what you said about management. And, part of me is like, where have we come up with this concept of managing versus fixing? It's like your car breaks down. You don't take it to the mechanic to manage it,
Well, it's a really good point. So the question is, what I'm trying to wake people up to is not that a lot of this stuff is just being managed. What I'm trying to wake people up to is this is a problem.
Yeah.
When I spent my $100,000 and I would go to a retreat and come back with not great results, I didn't have a problem with it. I was just like, oh, this is just the way things are. We're asleep at the wheel and we're just ingesting this regurgitated stuff, and there's no problem. That's what I'm trying. I'm not here to disparage what other people are doing.
Right.
I'm trying to wake up your audience saying we have been taught to settle. I remember going to a retreat, and what a lot of coaches and gurus make their money on is just telling you what the problem is. They don't tell you how to solve it. They just tell you what the problem is. Now, there's value in that awareness. The problem is they would tell me what the problem is, and then I would be so grateful. But this doesn't, like, I remember sitting in this retreat, and this coach was saying, the problem is that we're not in the present moment. We're in the past, we're not in the future. You want to be in the present. And I remember going, oh my God, that is so true. I need to be in the present moment. That's when I'm happiest. And I was so grateful. But all he was doing was telling me what the problem is. No solution, no how. But I was like, oh, thank you. Take my money. What if you went into an emergency room and the surgeon walked up and said, wow, you've been stabbed, you're bleeding. Goodbye. You wouldn't be like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for telling me what the problem is. But that's what's sold. What the problem is, what would be better, what is true. But where's the effing how? That's the problem, but we don't see it's a problem. And it is a problem. Without the how, without the system to change, it's a problem. But people don't think it's a problem. We just spend thousands of dollars in years and just being, oh, great. And here's why people tolerate management. Because that's all that's sold.
Well, and
the reason that's all that's sold is because a solution took two things. One is I had to care to solve this. The improvement industrial complex, they're okay managing. They don't have a problem with it. They're complacent. They're fine with it. Okay. But if they're okay managing, they're not going to stumble upon a solution. Mm-hmm. But then when we cared about a solution, do you want to know how we figured out a solution? Hard work. It was 8 years, Richard, 8 years of testing, living and working with addicts, working with monks in India, trying out different modalities and different, collecting the 8 years. Einstein said, like, basically, I'm not any smarter. I just stuck with it longer. That's what we did. We focused on a solution and we worked our heinies off for years. That's how we cracked the code. It's nothing magical or mystical. We cared and we stuck with it. And the average therapist, psychologist, coach, guru, they have a good business going. They're making money, regurgitating old stuff. They're fine. But I'm an engineer, and we are focused, obsessed problem solvers. Obsessed, focused problem solvers usually are not focused on the internal world. They're focused on the external world. Look at what happens when engineers and scientists apply that tenacity of problem solving to the external world. Most of the technology that we benefit from is engineers and scientists focused on problem solving on the external world. Putting a man on the moon, a helicopter on Mars, technology, Wi-Fi, all of that is engineers and scientists focused on problem solving on the outside world. But can you see, if you took that tenacity and that mindset and that toolkit and applied it to the inside world, you might get some innovation?
I do. It makes sense. And kind of what you had said something in the beginning, and it kind of reminds me of this point of going, one thing I hated in management as a manager or leader was, well, why do we do that? Well, because that's what we've always done. Well, that's the worst answer ever, and when it would come to process improvement and we would try new things, I would always, and it kind of makes me think of your clients, as I would always say that, look, our job is to try the process. It'll tell us whether it's a good or bad process. We don't have to make it fail. If it's a bad process, it's going to fail on its own. And so we don't have to try. Our job is to give it a shot. And if it works, it might be something better than we've ever done. It might save us time. It might make your job easier. But this whole that's because that's the way we've always done it. When you said that we've been focusing on some of these things for 100 years and we've been doing the same thing or regurgitating same information. And of course, new things come up periodically. I mean, I'm sure there was something like EMDR. There was different tools have come along at different points. And then some people have learned to put the tools together. But of course, like you said, I think it's one of those things, unless you're into research and wanting to make things better or looking for a solution for yourself that wasn't previously offered. That's how innovation with most things come, is solving a problem that there wasn't a solution for. Or, hey, somebody said, I need this and nobody else is making it. Let me make it, or let me do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I want to be clear, even if you want to innovate something, it's not that simple. Because if you told a therapist, hey, open that door, and behind that door would be a way that you could solve your client's anxiety. Let's just assume they're well-intentioned. They're like, wow, that's much better. They'd probably open the door and grab it. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. It's not good for business, but let's assume they want what's best for their client. But to innovate, you have to often be from the outside looking in. So people said to me, you're not a therapist, you're a psychologist. How did you figure this out? I was like, look at the track record of the experts. So the experts are all swapping information, not getting the result. That's the last group that's going to innovate because they're all swapping the same stuff. So the person you want is the non-expert, the fresh perspective that's not a therapist or a psychologist, but a trained Jedi-level problem solver.
I like that.
So again, the reason we cracked this, it's nothing magical. We took a toolkit and an attitude and a skill set that normally is on the outside. So you've got people who focus on the inside, your heart-centered people, your feelers, your therapists, and your psychologists, and your teachers. They're helpers. So you got your helpers, but guess what? They're not trained ninja-level problem solvers. Then you got your engineers and your physicists and your scientists. They're mind people focused on they're the last people to connect to feelings. So it's these two different groups. And I just happen to be in that little Venn diagram where the engineer, Jedi-level problem solver overlapped with the internal helpers, and there was a little overlap. Bada boom, bada bing. This is how we got the innovation.
So what's been your favorite, a couple of your favorite, let's say, moments, like whether they be aha or like something, whether it's been from helping somebody that you're like, man, this is just reaffirming, and what do you get from it, essentially? Like, what kind of fulfillment? Since engineers aren't typically super feely.
Yeah, we're not typically. I am. You can't learn how to repair a nervous system with high levels of care unless you become very connected to your feelings. So I'm a little unicorn. I'm an engineer who feels a lot. I mean, we're all here to help.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we help somebody, it's going to feel good. For me, again, the reason we pulled this off is I was a feeler helper and an engineer. So I don't just want to help. I want efficient and effective end results. And when those two things overlap, that turns me on. So today I was looking at the results from this client, Dylan, from Montana, horribly insecure, hadn't had a date in 2 years, had tried everything, confidence coaching, how to pick up women, meditation. He tried everything. And he was such a sweet guy. And he said, I just want to share my heart with a woman, and I'm just too scared, and I haven't had a date in 2 years. And I remembered what it was like to be insecure and afraid to walk up to a woman. And then if I did get the date, afraid to be me. I remember all that fear. And I said, we can help you. And he said, are you sure? I mean, I've tried everything. And I said, well, again, if it doesn't work, you don't pay a penny. So isn't it worth a shot? He said, it's worth a shot. He said, I also know somebody that did your program, and he was afraid of girls, and he's not anymore. So it worked for him. Maybe it'll work for me. So I just got a message from him about 4 days ago. He was about 4 weeks into the process. And he said, I just can't thank you enough. And I said, what happened? He said, I was walking down the street and I saw an attractive woman. And he said, not only did I just walk up to her, but I walked up to her with no fear. And then he said, I was just talking to her. I didn't care what she thought of me. I wasn't trying to be someone. I was just me. And I could see she liked me. And he said, and for the first time in my life, I thought, of course she liked me. I'm incredible. And then he said, I asked her out with no fear. And then she said yes. And he said, then when we went on a date 2 days later. And he said, halfway through the date, I just asked her if she wanted to dance under a full moon. And we just danced. And then we kissed. And he said, that's not what's so incredible. What's incredible is that I hadn't had a date in 2 years, and this all happened in 4 weeks, and there was no fear. So I could enjoy it all. It wasn't a fluke. I was just being the natural, authentic, beautiful me, and this all happened from it. This is what I wanted. I didn't want a girlfriend. I wanted to get a girlfriend by being me, and that's what you gave me, and you gave it to me in 4 weeks. Now, he didn't say it like that, but when I saw all that change happen and in 4 weeks from a system, yeah, that's what gets me excited.
It sounds like it. Like, to me, I had this feeling of going, like, getting to witness people's aha moment, that tipping point moment where they've now realized what your system has done for them. And that right there is the little piece that kind of gets you off, per se. How rewarding that must feel.
If I worked with him for 10 years and after 10 years, he's like, I finally walked up to a girl. That's not the same as 4 weeks.
Right.
And the 4 weeks from a system that I've been tweaking and polishing and optimizing to see a system, meaning just follow the steps and you get the results, because that means it's scalable. We can put it online. And we can scale it. We can put it into schools. We can put it into prisons. It's what the world needs. So that always excites me.
Speaking of which, so what's the system called? What's your company called? I know you mentioned the research organization earlier, and what's for the future? You mentioned prisons, schools, systems. Like, what are you looking to do in the future?
Well, we have huge plans because, again, the value of the system is the effectiveness, the simplicity, and the scalability. It's all online. It's a set of videos with the theory and the exercises. It's all laid out elegantly, so we can just hand the link to a school, to a prison, to a university, and get basic nervous system care into schools so that kids feel safe from the inside out. So their anxiety goes away and their confidence skyrockets. So we have a vision for this to spread, but because of the skepticism and the innovation, it's going very slowly. So we help people one-to-one, and we're also waiting for this to go bigger. But I'm also patient because innovation can take decades to catch on. It took about 20 years for the breakthrough that Florence Nightingale discovered. It took about 20 years for that to catch on. So I'm being patient. What I'd like to happen is a researcher or a scientist in the mental health or the medical field to do a clinical case study of the results that we're getting. Because I sit here telling you we're solving this in 6 weeks. People don't believe us. We have a no change, no charge guarantee. So, but wouldn't it be neat if there was a researcher or a scientist or someone in a university with the credentials to see what we've discovered and do a clinical trial and show the innovative simplicity of what we've done? That's what I'd like to do. I think that would help us a lot.
Oh, I think it's like anything else. Is there's always kind of skepticism and naysayers with anything, but they're researching psychedelics at Stanford and other places, which they probably weren't. I mean, psychedelics have been around a lot longer, and I'm sure they were doing LSD experiments way back in the day. But, they're finally to a point where they're starting to take stuff that was always considered illegal, no medical value, and giving it some attention and seeing what it can do. And I think this is something that's similar of, there's things happening in the world that we never thought would probably happen. Be it whether it's legalization of marijuana or anything. And so I think there's hope. At least I would like to hope that there is. And, if the system is and does what it says you do, then I don't know why, other than skepticism. But it'd be a great way to make the world a better place and get people, especially out of the fear-mongering type of thing.
Well, I have hope. When I first we got the system to about a 90% success rate was when we felt we would send it live. We didn't want to release to the world until we really had it dialed in, because what we don't want people to do is try something and fail and then feel worse about themselves. So part of why we spent so much time and care and passion optimizing and testing the system to be consistently effective is A, to get you results, but also we don't want you failing and feeling worse about yourself. I remember that pain of trying something, failing, and then feeling more trapped and broken, like there's something wrong with me. So we have a do no harm policy. So we're very passionate about making the program very simple and easy to do so people don't fail. And when we finally got it to that place, I thought, oh my God, this is just going to spread like wildfire. And people who would join the program, they say, if this works, I'm going to tell my church, my community, I'm going to tell all my friends. And they would go through the program, their anxiety, procrastination, people pleasing would vanish. Then they would go tell their friends, and their friends were like, too good to be true. And so we were all so excited that this was just going to change the world overnight, and it hasn't. And there's a bit of sadness, but I know that things of value eventually catch on. So for right now, I just come on podcasts. And right now, if you're listening to this, I don't want to call it a miracle, but something bigger than you wanted you to hear this message, because what we do, I hope 30 years from now, is common sense and everybody's solving these things quickly. But as it stands now, nobody knows what we're doing. And so if you're hearing this message now, somebody up there is looking out for you and wants you to hear this message and wants you to know that you don't have to keep managing and dealing with this pain. If what I've been saying has been resonating with you and you just say, you know what? This guy's making sense. What if it is in the body? What if this is just fear? What if I've got a nervous system that I never was taught to take care of, and it's cranking out all this nervousness and fear? And if that's true, then it's possible to repair a system in the body. I know that's possible. And well, if they've got the whole toolkit in one place and all the instructions of what to do in what order, and they're claiming to get results, and they're backing up the results, meaning I don't pay till the end till I get results, and they're measuring results, which you only do when you're getting results. I'm not sure, but this is sure worth a try, because if it works, I get to be free of this. I get to be free of the anxiety. I get to be free of the procrastination, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the caring about people. I get to be free of that and be the natural, open-hearted version of myself. Oh my God. That is a really good idea to try it. If that's you, go to my website, it's danielpackard.com. You can get a bit more information about the program, how it's structured. You can get some basics on our no change, no charge guarantee. There's also some free resources that you can try. And if you're interested in the free resources or the program, you can book a free call with me. I'll learn more about you, what's holding you back. Then I'll show you how we can help you. And if you want our help, great. If not, that's okay too. We just want motivated people. So that's it. Just if you want to be free of this and you think this is worth a try, you want to know more, just keep things simple. Just go to danielpackard.com and just keep following your intuition.
And I got to give everybody a reminder of, if it sounds, whether it's too good to be true, however you want to say it, just remember that people probably looked at Steve Jobs when he told people, hey, I want to make this device. Or what happened when somebody got the first smartphone? They were probably like, what on earth is this? Is it going to work? And now people can't live without them. And so, this, I would encourage everyone to check it out. And because just like that, this could be something that's so innovative and that we could be using it 30 years from now, just like everybody has an iPhone. That it's almost like a standard in a way.
Yes, I hope this is the standard one day. Now, like I said, it's impossible to know who has an innovation and who's got something too good to be true. You really don't know. And if you've tried a lot of things where you were overpromised and underdelivered, logic would tell you that the person is probably too good to be true also, statistically. Mm-hmm. But if the person who's claiming something incredible but they don't back up their results, then yeah, that's probably too good to be true. But if a person claims something that makes sense and logical, and they not only measure results, but back up their results, then is that too good to be true, or is that an innovation?
I think regardless, it's worth trying. Because I know, like you said, one of those things is, you said you wanted motivated people, and typically people, they get fed up, and they're willing, if they really want to solve the problem and they're really in that much pain, they'll try anything. And, hopefully this could be the one thing that you try that fixes it all, and you don't have to manage anymore. Because I think one thing I've really walked away from with this conversation is just the difference between managing and solving. And why do we settle for management?
I mean, thank you for that feedback, because it's one of the things I've been trying to communicate to people. One is that we have this program and the basic fundamental theory of why it's possible. It's not too good to be true. If you go from the mind to the body, you focus on the nervous system, you go from unhealth to health, all that tracks, all that makes sense. It's not too good to be true. Someone didn't figure it out, but we did. And once you figured it out, just like most magic tricks, it's not magic, it's something simple. But the other piece that I'm trying to communicate to people is the reason a solution feels so too good to be true is because we've been hypnotized to settle for management, which is kind of sad.
We've been settling for no solution because we were told no solution was the solution, probably.
Yeah. And so the experts, while they haven't harmed you, they have lowered your standards to tolerate management and pay for it and even be grateful for it. I used to be grateful for my apps. Oh my God, thank you. Thank you for the management.
Yeah. It's like
it was
when
a Band-Aid.
people tell you, like,
I would never be grateful for a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
But I was, because that's all that was available. So I was like, oh, this is the best Band-Aid ever. Oh, I love the way they package it. It's a Band-Aid. And I was grateful for it. That's the snow job, and they call themselves experts. If all you can do is Band-Aids, I'm sorry, you're not, they call it mental health experts. Really? Really?
If you went
You're
to an orthopedic surgeon and they put a Band-Aid on you instead of a cast, you'd be like, or surgery, you'd be like, what in the world?
Yeah. If all you can do is a Band-Aid, fine. But you wouldn't call yourself an expert in the field. You'd be like, this is the best I can do. Now, in the physical world, there are people that do it. It's called pain management. They're very upfront. We will manage the pain. That's what I am. They don't call them a non-pain expert. I'm pain management. But mental health, no. If people had mental health, they wouldn't have anxiety to begin with. So if you can't help people be free of anxiety, fine. You're managing it. But don't call yourself a mental health expert on top of the fact it's not even mental health. It's physical health that's spread to the body. So not only you're in the wrong place in calling yourself an expert, but you're not solving anything in calling yourself an expert.
I hope everybody's as blown away or as I was in terms of making some of these connections. I think the explanation for me, it was like, reminds me of my college days, sitting through a lecture and going, when you start to piece things and then you can go back and look it all over and go, yes, that tracks, and it makes sense. And, now I feel like I'm going to look at everything differently. And especially when I feel any sort of anxiety or whatever, I'm going to be able to say, hey, fear, that's what it is. But also, got to start taking care of my nervous system.
Well, I appreciate that what I've shared with you will allow you to look back and currently at your current situation and see it through fresh eyes, realizing that maybe you don't have all these problems. Maybe this is just fear. And maybe that fear isn't starting in the mind. Maybe it's starting in the body, and maybe it is the nervous system. And how does the nervous system react to how you treat yourself? That's great. And I'm happy you got that insight. However, that is not going to change anything. And I say this because part of what the mental health, psychological, personal development industry has also got us addicted to is learning. Learning is not permanent, fast change. So I'm glad you got these insights. These insights will not create impactful, fast change in your life. Do not settle for a new perspective. I may be biased here. Take the gift that you met me and found out that learning and insights won't get you what you need. It's not enough. It's the system with all the tools laid out and the step-by-step instructions that will get you real change fast. So while I appreciate that the information I have shared with you has you looking at things differently, I don't want you to look at things differently. I want you to live differently in a matter of weeks. So please don't settle for a new perspective. That's the old paradigm. Always learning, always getting a new idea. No, when you break a bone, you don't want a new understanding of bone pain, okay? When you have been stabbed and you're bleeding, you don't want to be like, you really made me look at bleeding in a whole new way. No, you want it solved. So please don't stop with a new understanding. Take that new understanding and use it to motivate you to take action, to do our program. That's what creates real change. What do you think of that?
I think it's well said. I think understanding is the start, just the beginning. But I agree with everything you say, especially with when you put it into, hey, when you got the broken bone or you're stabbed, you don't want some philosophical explanation, a better understanding of it. You want it fixed.
No.
Yeah. I love that.
Part of the reason also people don't take action is we've been hypnotized to just stay in this hamster wheel of continual understanding. Now, when you don't have a solution, that's all you can kind of do is hang around and learn about and understand and deconstruct. And people are just used to it. So when they hear information, people reach out to me like, that was so true. What you said, you're right. It's not my mind, it's my body, it's the nervous system. Thank you so much for that insight. And I'm like, and
it makes me think of what we were talking about on the thing. You're like, yeah, well, you got the insight, but that's just, well, like you said, hey, and we're thankful for it. We're thankful for the Band-Aid. Because that's what we've been programmed. And I think too, that was kind of, what you permit, you promote. And they've been promoting that we accept all this stuff we've accepted for years. And I think that's one of the definite things I see with you just in these last few statements is, yes, the information is good and you appreciate the feedback, but that doesn't fix anything. And you're here to help people fix and solve that solution. And
we are here.
Action is the only way.
Action and the system. You need a system. I cannot stress this enough. Without a system, you cannot create deep, permanent change quickly. If you're having a heart attack and you want a healthy heart, there's a whole system. If you have tooth pain, okay? You go to the dentist. There's a system of steps, and they understand that system, how the tooth works, and they get rid of the root canal, and your teeth can be fine. In our body, when you need it repaired permanently and quickly, there's a system that they've spent decades optimizing, and it works, and it's reliable. But it's a system. If you need a root canal and you go to the dentist, they don't just hand you some dental floss and say, bye-bye. They have a system. When I blew out my ACL, when I was 22, I flipped off a wall trying to improve a girl with my dance moves. Turns out I can't flip off a wall. When I landed, I blew out my knee. But did I have to spend a lifetime understanding my knee, learning about my knee, having insights into my knee? No. I went to a knee expert. They did an MRI. What did they show me? There was a mechanical tear in one of my ligaments. Mechanical. What did they do? They took a ligament from another part of my body and mechanically fixed the ligament. That was all a system, steps, tools. Then I went to physical therapy, a set of tools and steps in a right order, so that in 1 year, my knee was completely fixed and I haven't worried about it in 25 years. Systems. That's what gets the job done reliably and quickly. So far, that doesn't exist for what we're struggling with. There's systems to manage, but not solve. So to your audience, that's why you failed. And so please, 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 for your own happiness, appreciate the system. It's the system you need. That's what we spent 8 years figuring out. And that's the real gift, not the theory, the system that we've tested and that we back up the results.
Everybody's heard it. You need to go to danielpackard.com, check out the system, and remember, you don't pay till the end.
Just real quick, after you're done listening to this amazing episode on this pretty freaking sweet podcast, give it a 5-star rating, and then head on over to the Podcast Connection Network and check out all the other amazing podcasts that we got over there. This is a plug. I got one too. It's called The Nonchalant Perfectionist. Check us all out. The link, you know where the link's going to be in the episode's description.
Do you have any questions for me?
Logically, because I'm always trying to learn why people don't take more action with what we do. If you had a friend, what's one thing that I described from the list that you maybe struggle with, whether it's anxiety, perfectionism, procrastination, caring what people think of you, low confidence, any of those resonate a little bit?
People pleaser.
Okay. So you already know you do it. You're aware of it. You're probably better at it. You got some tips and tools to manage it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay. How would life be better if you weren't a people pleaser?
I would probably do things because maybe I would do more things that I wanted to try or do, but maybe I don't do because I'm afraid of either pissing somebody off or not making them happy, which are kind of the they're almost the same thing, but a little bit different.
Okay. So let's say you're right. You said it. Fear. So fear is under the people pleasing. As I've explained to you, we address the fear. So not only does the fear go away, but then the people pleasing goes with it. So from 1 to 10, 1 is low and 10 is high. Just how much better would life be if you didn't people please and the fear was gone all in 6 weeks? How much better would life be, 1 to 10?
10.
Okay. So now let's say you have a friend who walks up to you and they say, hey, I listen to this podcast and I struggle with people pleasing and fear. And there was this guy who explained pretty systematically, in a way that made sense, that you could get rid of the fear in the nervous system and the people pleasing would go with it in 6 weeks. And I don't pay until the end when I get measurable results, when I'm completely free of it. Do you think I should just take that as a new insight, or do you think I should take action and try the program? What would you tell your friend?
Take action. Try it.
So my question to you is, when I told you what we did and you said, thanks for the insight, but I didn't hear you say you'd take action, why not? I'm not judging you. I'm actually curious. Why not?
For me personally, I don't know. It's a good question because I feel like I've been on this journey, of course, for years, and it's recently through gaining understanding that I'm able to take action, implement some of my own things that I do that make me less of what I don't want to be. So if I was a people pleaser, let's say before in my last job and role, I've kind of learned in a way to get rid of many of the fears that I have, but of course it's taken 4 years to do so. A lot of the things you're explaining, I somewhat understand and have a slight grasp. But also I've spent 12 years in healthcare. I've spent a lot of time sitting through stuff and working on myself. And that's kind of where my understanding comes from. And so, for me, that's my answer, is that in a way I feel like I'm on track. I just feel like I need polishing. Although although I've never made the connection of nervous system versus brain, even though I've had A&P 1 and 2, so I understand it all. Um, yeah, that's my answer.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you, except what you're saying doesn't really make sense. I basically said, how much is this thing holding you back? And how much would life be better? You said 10 out of 10. And then I said, if a friend told you what I had, would you tell the friend to try it? You said yes. Then I came to you and I was like, well, why don't you try it? What we're offering, in 6 weeks, it's gone. So this thing that would make your life better, 10 out of 10, you get that in 6 weeks. Keyword 6 weeks, guaranteed. But your response was like, well, I've got some things. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm on track, which is all great. But that's not nearly as good as gone in 6 weeks.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I have anything that I'm trying to think. That's the thing, is I don't know that I have anything that's like such
you're doing
a struggle.
What you're doing, and I'm only showing, this is why people don't work with us. It's like this pattern. And I'm not even sure what it is. Because again, it's not that complicated. Something that would make your life better at 10 out of 10, you get that in 6 weeks, guaranteed. Getting to the thing guaranteed faster, that's always a good idea.
Right.
But then when I turn to you, you're like, well, I think the thing I've been doing that's taking a really long time and is probably just management, I'm going to choose the thing that, based on past results, is not going to probably solve this. And whatever improvement is going to take a really long time. So your logic is, I choose the thing that probably won't solve it, and whatever results I get will take a really long time. And you're saying that's good thinking, and it's not. But you're a smart guy, and this is where your mind goes.
Well, but you also have to realize too, though, that I've spent 4 years with myself, but this is the first time I've ever met or had a conversation or even been attuned or open to this information. And so I don't know if that's where
it's not.
No.
And here's how I know this. I have this conversation with people every day. You're doing great. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. I'm on the outside looking in.
Right.
And I have these conversations every day with people where I see smart, intelligent people make the decision that doesn't benefit them. And then I watch them justify and rationalize it. You're saying you don't know me that well. That's kind of true, but there's no risk to try it. If you're drowning and you've been drowning, okay, for 4 years, and you're nothing's really gotten you out of drowning. You're treading water and you're drowning, and life's okay. And a lifeboat pulls up, and they said, "Hey, we got a lifeboat. What we do for a living, we spent 8 years. We built this lifeboat. We can get you to shore so you can enjoy the beach. You don't have to tread and drown water anymore. And if you get into the lifeboat, and we get you to shore, you could pay us then. If we can't, we'll just put you back here." And you basically say, well, I just met you, and this is my first time hearing about this thing you call a boat. And I don't know you that well. So I think I'll just stay here treading water and drowning. You wouldn't say that. You'd be like, I don't really need to know you. It sounds great what you got. It's no risk to try. It's way better than what I'm doing. So I'll hop in the boat. If you had a child that was, very sick, and there was a doctor that told you that they could save your child's life, and they had a track record, would you say, I don't know this doctor that well? I mean, I'd like to hang out with them. Or if you were choking. The point is, given the benefits and given that there's no risk to try, I'm telling you, the logical thing is to try it.
Right. Well, my thought was, so I initially, when you were talking about the guy drowning and I'll take you to shore, do you ever have people who are like, well, what if I get to shore and then I can't pay you for the boat ride here, even though I like the shore?
But this is where the mind is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Because stuff is failed. This is what I think's going on. I think you're afraid. I think there's fear. I think there's doubt, which there should be because you've had this stuff for so long. Part of you may unconsciously think, I can't be fixed. There's something wrong with me. Partly that's how it feels because you've had this for so long, but also it's human nature. We internalize this and we think, well, maybe it works for other people. Maybe it won't work for me. So there's this doubt. And if it doesn't work for you, then I feel more broken and more like there's something wrong with me. So there's all these unconscious forces that make a person afraid to do what works. And then what happens is their focus goes into this not working instead of what if it did work? Like you just said, well, what if when I get to the end, I can't pay for it? Why are you even going there? Get in the lifeboat, man, and be happy. But our mind goes to, what if it doesn't work? What if I don't do the steps? What if there's something wrong with me? What if the fear wins? I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you, I see this all the time. Because everything has failed you. Also, what if you're afraid to change? What if you've been this way for so long, and even though you don't like it, there's a certain comfort in the familiar misery. You know this life. You know the people-pleasing life. Put everybody else first, put yourself last, then be a martyr and feel resentful about it. It sucks, but you know it, man. You've been doing it your whole life and you're good at it. It's familiar. It's comfortable. Who would you be without this? What if this was gone? Change, while wonderful, is scary. Is it possible that maybe, just maybe, your hesitancy to take action is not because what you're doing is a good plan, because you're afraid to take action? Is that maybe possible?
Very well could be.
No judgment. I see it all the time.
You got me so thought, yeah, a lot of thoughts, a lot of thinking.
I don't want you to feel judged or outed.
No,
I just want to highlight, this is why we work with motivated people. Anybody's going to tell you they want to change. But the simple fact is that managing is comfortable. It's not real change. And we like our comfort. We like our familiarity. No one's going to admit that and say, I'm actually afraid of real change. And also it's unconscious, so you may not be aware of it.
Some people are afraid of success.
They're afraid of success. They're afraid of change. They're afraid. Now, they don't know they're afraid. So I'll sit with people and they'll tell me, here's the reason. Even though I spent 45 minutes telling you I'm in absolute agony and I would kill for a solution, and I just handed you a risk-free solution, and then all of a sudden they've got all these reasons why they won't do it, including, I don't like watching online videos. It hurts my eyes. I had a woman who was suicidal from anxiety, and she didn't do our program because she said watching videos too long hurts her eyes. I was like, it hurts your eyes more than crippling anxiety? And she totally just talked herself out of it. Now I know what's going on, which is people are afraid of change. They're afraid it's not going to work, and there's a lot of fear, which is understandable. So the people we work with are not the people that have no fear or are skeptical. They are motivated by the possibility that what I'm saying is true and they can be free of it. If the motivation is less than the fear, then the fear wins and the person justifies not taking action. But if you're motivated, if you're like, oh my God, there's a chance I could be free of people pleasing. There's a chance I could be I couldn't have this fear and my anxiety is gone. I could live the life I want to live. I could wake up every morning looking forward to the day with better focus and better happiness. I wouldn't care what people think of me, and I could be authentic and open-hearted and have the relationship that I want. Oh my God, I want that so badly that I'm willing to take action even with the fear. Those are the people we work with. So if those people are listening to me right now, and your desire to be free of this stuff so you can truly be the person you want to be and live the life you want to live is strong enough, and that motivation is stronger than your skepticism is fear, that's who we work with, and that's who should reach out to us.
I would love to even interview somebody who's been through this system.
But you won't. We have testimonials, man.
Yeah, I figured that, but
no risk to try it.
I was sitting there thinking I was like, almost like a Morgan Spurlock type of thing of going, well, I could do it and then do a solo podcast on the results.
Now, so you just said while you're intrigued by what we do, you'd like to interview somebody who went through the program. Now, I'm assuming you were saying that because you want to kind of see if it works or not. Is that partly true? Yes or no?
I don't know. Not necessarily, because to me, I mean, I know what we're talking about is results, but I'm kind of a process person. So to me, when I initially said interview someone, my first thought in all transparency was my second vocal thing of going, maybe I should do it and just give my own testimonial via podcast. But somewhere in there, the same way we justify stuff, like you said, people talk themselves right out of things. My mind in that moment switched to interview someone else. And it wasn't necessarily, when I thought about it from myself, my own point of view, I don't go like, I wouldn't do it necessarily. I mean, results are the one thing, but I'm about experience, about process. To me, the process is important, if that makes sense.
It is. And I'm going to ask a question.
Enjoy. Okay.
I know almost for a fact, and I say this with love, as someone who has these conversations every day and has seen every single strategy under the sun for people to talk themselves out of it and make it seem like it's a smart thing. So I know all the tricks, and before I figured all this out, I'm sure I did all of them. So from a mile away, I can see exactly what you're doing. Do you want me to show you that what you just said is almost 100% likely to be a justification to avoid getting help? Would you like me to show that to you?
Absolutely.
Okay. I can't prove anything, just connect the dots. Okay? Again, you said, if I could be free of this, my life would be better 10 out of 10. And I would tell a friend to do this and try it. Then I came to you and I said, why don't you try it? And to try it for people pleasing. People pleasing is putting others first. That's the pattern. So then I come to you and I'm like, hey, wouldn't life be better if you weren't a people pleaser? AKA put yourself first so you could be happy? And you basically said, you know what? I think the smart thing is that somebody else should go through the program first and be happy first. You literally just did your pattern. I'm giving you a shot at happiness. Is it possible your old pattern of like, no happiness for me. No. You know what I think would be way better? Put somebody else's priorities and needs and happiness first. Is it possible that your wisdom is maybe embedded in your pattern?
It's the first time I've ever seen how deep it goes. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like I need some serious therapy.
What if, man? Just think about this. Think about what had to come together for us to meet. Think about what had to come together for you to have that awareness. Your whole life of people pleasing, the disappointment, the resentment, you being aware of the people pleasing and nothing really solving it. Then you, on your podcast, have some magical little engineer gnome who basically says, we can clear that up in 6 weeks. Then I notice you get super excited and not take action. I happen to know why. Then I lovingly and skillfully, if I might add, show you that you're literally doing your pattern right now, the pattern that you're likely to repeat for the rest of your life, unless you get something incredibly effective, which we offer. And you had that light bulb moment. And all you have to do right now is have the courage, and it is scary to say, oh my God, I've been putting myself last my entire life, and all these things have been conspired where I want to change that pattern and put myself first and my happiness first. And I don't want to wait for somebody else to go through the program and be happy. I want to be happy now, and I want to put myself first.
I had
Forget
no
the
idea it was
program.
that deep.
Forget doing it. Would you be open to having a breakthrough teachable moment where you, Richard, put yourself first and make your happiness a priority? What do you think?
Yes, because I didn't know it ran that deep till you just showed me that my pattern is coming out unknowingly.
What are you saying yes to?
Maybe going to danielpackard.com.
Well, it's not the yes I was looking for. The yes was, Daniel, damn it, I've been putting myself last my whole life. I'd like to break the pattern and have courage and try something to put myself first. Forget the program, just the act of putting yourself first. That's what I was looking for. But change takes time, baby steps. At least I'll get you to the website. But for anybody out there that just listened to what happened and was like, no, go for it, I invite you, the listener, you go for it. Or if you don't go for it, at least just be honest and say, wow, I have some real fear around change, and just be honest about it. Don't blame me. Don't blame the program. Don't bring the doubt. Just go, wow, this actually sounds like a good idea. It sounds like such a good idea. I'm scared to try it. And just be honest and aware.
I think
Or
I'm scared to try.
be courageous. What?
Oh, I said, when you said that, I go, yeah, I definitely, looking at it that way, I go, yeah, I'm scared definitely to try.
Beautiful.
So
I appreciate your honesty. And can you see that it's much healthier and more effective to say, wow, what you've described sounds incredible. It seems like it should work. You back up your results, which probably means you get results. It's no risk to try. It's logically the smartest thing to do to at least try. No risk to try. If it doesn't work, you don't pay a penny. When it does work, your life is 10 out of 10 better. But I'm too scared to try. At least that is honest and aware. Because now, if a week from now, 2 weeks from now, you're doing your people pleasing and you feel the pain and you're like, I don't like this version of myself. I put everybody else ahead of me and then my needs aren't met and that's not good for me and then I'm resentful. I don't want to live like this anymore. Oh, there was that program that could maybe get me out of this. And yes, I'm afraid, but being free of this is worth it. I'm going to have courage and try it. That's a much better position than talking yourself out of it. So congratulations. This is incredible. You're afraid, and that's a breakthrough, and I'm proud of you. And if you ever have the courage to take action and be free of this, we will be here waiting for you to help you, because when you are a healthier, happier you, you're going to be a better husband and father and person on this planet.
Well, you've made it this far, which means you're probably a super fan of the show. That's amazing, and I really appreciate your support. To keep up with all the latest updates, make sure you're following the show on social media. You can find all the links in the bio. And if you've been enjoying the content, I'd be so grateful if you could take a minute and leave a review. It really helps us reach more people who might love the show as much as you do. Also, don't forget to tell one friend about the show as well. Word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. And if you're feeling extra generous, check out the link tree in the bio where you can find a link to donate. Every little bit helps me keep creating the content you love. Thanks for being an awesome super fan. I couldn't do it without you.
Let's go.